Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And this is another influence building training over in our Changemaker community. If you're not yet part of the community, head on over. There are some great relationships being built. There are collaborations being built, podcasters in there, aspiring podcasters who are already setting up potential guests once they launch their podcast. But I am also streaming this live across a number of different platforms because what we're going to be talking about today, I think, is so relevant. You may have heard me speak about the 7 podcasting mistakes, but I thought now is the time to also talk about 7 podcasting principles, particularly if you want to launch a podcast to build your reach with your ideal client. It's not just any old reach, but reach in front of your ideal client. Build your reputation as a trusted authority. So when your particular topic or topic that someone is talking about that relates to your industry and where you're an expert, a specialist in, they're talking about that, your name is mentioned, as well, of course, as revenue. And you would have heard me say, and if not, I'm going to share it again because it's so important, that the way to monetize your podcast, especially for specialist businesses, service-based businesses, is to monetize your own message rather than monetizing someone else's. That can be done later, but it's a whole different relationship building part of building your podcast platform that comes later. So first you want to monetize your own podcast first. I'm going to talk about those principles. I know that there's a number of people who are going to be watching this live. If you do, just put hashtag replay. Let me know where you are watching from. I know we've got a global community, especially over on our Changemaker community, which is awesome. So if you're here live, let me know where you're from. I know that we can also get comments over from LinkedIn as well. Would love to shout out and recognize you for being here as well. And if you've got a question or a comment as I continue to share, jump on in. Love, love, love your thoughts on what you think. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to dive on in and start talking about the 7 principles. Now, I've created an infographic and I'm going to go through each points. The first point is starting with the right strategy, and it begins with the end in mind. So I want to talk about, hey, Diana, Sydney, great. Karen, replay from Sydney, coming over from LinkedIn. Great to have you both here. So if you've got a comment or you've got a question while I'm live, let me know. I'm monitoring the comments here so I can be from in absolute value to you. Elizabeth Diakos, hi from Melbourne. I'm from Melbourne too. Good to see you here. Ivanhoe Heast, Elise, great to see you here as well. Fantastic. Good. All right, United States, Natalie Gregg, nice to see you here as well. See, we have got a diverse community here, which is excellent. Love that you are here and participating. Okay, let's dive in. I'm going to talk about the very first principle, and that is strategy. Strategy is so important in all aspects of our business. How do we know where we want to go and what we want to put into place as far as the steps to get us there if we don't know what it is or where it is that we are going? And I think, with businesses, when they're thinking about their podcast, one of the questions that I will ask is, well, what do you want to monetize? Who are you? What's your message? And also, ultimately, what is the end in mind that you want someone to then say, yep, I'm ready. How do we do this? I want to enroll in your program, or I want to hire you. How do we do that? So what is that I want to hire you, which often opens up an incredible conversation into people realizing, oh, actually, I'm not really that clear on where I want to head people. And there are some people who think, well, I want to not only to elevate my profile in my area of expertise, but I've also written a book, or I want to do some keynote speaking, and I want to fill some group programs. Now, all of those different aspects have different methods that you can achieve that. However, when you start to do a little bit of a deep dive, there's often a common theme that will allow you to do all of those things. And so ultimately, that the end in mind is that I'm going to position myself as an expert in that particular area, as a thought leader in that area. Here's how I'm challenging the status quo. I want to also position myself as a keynote speaker in that particular area, whilst also build a platform for my book and ultimately my coaching programs. So once you've identified that, then you can start to put into place the strategies to help you get there, or the various components to help you get there. But you can't do that if you're thinking, well, I'm just going to launch my podcast and I'm going to take it from there. Hey, Doug, good to see you. Deb, you are here too. Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so you've got unique circumstances. They have to be aligned with your business model and your business focus. And it saddens me because just in the last couple of weeks alone, I've spoken to 2 individuals who were business owners who started up their podcast, and they were thinking, oh, well, I'm going to interview interesting people that I'm interested in, and then hopefully some of my guests will have affiliate programs that I can promote. And then once I've built my community, I'm going to monetize it by sharing, maybe ads from sponsors or adverts. And I'm going to kind of hint about the kind of things that I do. Now, you, unless you've got the budget of some of the larger, what we call mainstream media, then that's going to take you a long time. So I say get focused on your niche, on that unique area where you want to become known as a specialist. You don't have to have a huge community. You just have to have a highly engaged and niched community. So, and that leads me to my second point: create fans, not followers. And this is where I'm going to dive into. And by the way, if you know someone who is a specialist, an expert, a thought leader in the area of creating fans, advocates for your business, creating an engaged community of people who just love everything you do and say because they believe or they align and with your core values and your message, and they just get behind you 110%. Let me know. I want to speak to them and get them on my podcast, because I think this is a huge area that many aspiring thought leaders and people who are on social media, which I know is you, when you start to really define and refine who that community is for you, and you start to speak into that with valuable content, and a podcast may be one of those elements that you're sharing, then that community is going to follow you, and they're going to really want to listen and watch and read and just consume every piece of content that you put out there. I know that I am. I mean, I'm a consumer as well. And if I found someone that I think, wow, they really kind of have me taking a step back and revisiting some of the ways that I'm looking at things, and I love their perspective on that. And oh gosh, they really, taught that in such a way that really relates to me. And you know what? I really like them, who they are as a person. You bet I'm going to go over and see if they've got a podcast. I've probably bought their books, Kindle. I'm a Kindle person, because I love to carry, my resources, my library around with me, because I never know when I'm going to get some time just to dive into another chapter. Listened to books. And then if they've got a podcast and I'm building that relationship, I'm probably also on their list as well. I'm already thinking about, I really want to work with this person. I already know who I want to work with, and have kind of positioned myself to be able to know that this is a person that I want to invest in. So I know already before they even launch their program, because I've already done my research. If I found someone who intrigues me that much, and I know has got a level of expertise that I'm looking to achieve and attain that level of mastery where they're at in my business, you bet I've already thought I'm going to work with that person. It's just a matter of time there. Okay, so we've got a question here, and I'm going to keep this quite interactive because I want to make sure it's as valuable for you as possible. So we've got a question here from Karen. Diverse learning, special needs support for parents and teachers is my lane, but there are many experts. Where do we start, Anne-Marie? Love that question. I'm so glad that you mentioned this, Karen. So this is where you really need to have a look at where you are, because there's only one you, and there is only one you with your experience, and there's only one you that can bring out this information in a way that you can share. So what you need to do is, as often, and I love how Steve Jobs said, you can, when you look backwards, you can join the dots. So I encourage you to do some dot joining. look at the various milestones and markers in your life, in your career, in the challenges that you've overcome, and see if there's a specific theme that has come across from that particular journey that you can then continue to speak into as you are sharing content in your particular area of expertise. So maybe, when you think about special needs support for specific parents and teachers, there may be a specific demographic of those teachers and of those parents who've experienced something quite unique that they can still be categorized, if you will, in diverse learning, special needs, but there's a real niche area in that special need area because only you can share, or you can share it in only the way that you can share. So I would encourage you to do some more investigating in that area. Maybe also too, this is something that a lot of my clients are going through at the moment. They're being researchers at the moment. We're looking at your lucrative niche, and they're observing and they're listening. And when I am on social media, one of the things that I love to do is to and this is what I'm encouraging you to do, Karen, and anyone else who is struggling with an industry where there are many other voices that are contributing. That is actually an exciting thing to consider, because if there's many voices in that particular area, it means it's a hot topic and it's an area with real need. You've just got to identify where is my little position in that marketplace and my community of those raving fans, those people who just love what I do and what I stand for. Thank you, Elizabeth. Ryan Matthew, I will make sure to go back, circle around and reach out to him, get him on the show. So what I would suggest to you, Karen, and what a lot of my clients are doing at the moment is they're going to various forums and online communities and watching the conversations, maybe even creating some articles or some questions that will allow you to take the pulse of your community or the community that you want to really serve, or to see where is there a need. So when you're thinking of special needs and parents and teachers, what is it that they are complaining about? What are the challenges that are arising for them? Because, in that conversation, you may be able to identify a specific need that's not being addressed in the marketplace that you can, with complete authority, because you've lived it, you've breathed it, or maybe you need to just reshape some of that content to be able to fulfill that need in that industry. So Karen, thank you. This is wonderful information. Join the dots, research. Yes. Good. I'm glad. One of the things that I'll say to people is when you hang out with me, expect your to-do list to grow, but it's exciting because it'll get you in the right area. So there's complex needs. So what you might find, Karen, is that, and this is something else that I'm sharing with a lot of my clients too, as you start to do research, you may uncover a huge need. Don't let that become overwhelming. Write all of those things down, but you may then be able to see like there's a pathway, a program pathway that well, look, I want to be able to support them in that area, but the first area that they really get stuck on is this. So you almost create a sequence or a pathway that you can support clients. Yeah, totally exciting. Fantastic. Good. And that is really the research that you do is then going to inform if you create a podcast, your podcast strategy. It's going to inform you as far as the topics that you are going to speak into. Because when you have the right topics that speak into, and this is for everyone, I might be speaking here to Karen, but it's relevant for you as well. So when you know the topics that your ideal clients are struggling with, then you can create podcast titles. This is a top, for every topic of the show, that when people are Googling, how do I this and that, or what happens when this and this, when people are Googling and they want to find information, because the key words that they're searching for, or the phrases that they're putting into Google, and those phrases have been compellingly written into a topic, headline of your episode title, guess what? Your title is going to show up. And then what you can do is it'll even inform you in your research that maybe you're able to tap into the psyche, if you will, of and the expectations and the promise of value to your audience, and come up with a podcast name that just speaks into that as well. And it can be something really simple, such as Women in Leadership podcast. We're not talking about how to build a house, unless you're a woman in leadership that is in a construction company. But, just that name shares a promise of or expectation of what to expect when you listen to that podcast. So these are all things, when you do the right research and you get clear on that, you're better informed and you're able to intentionally and purposefully, which is why I call my program Podcasting with Purpose, be able to come up with all of the components that make for an incredible show, making it, influence and impacting, and ultimately impacting your business, because people who have hung around you, they're the raving fans. They know, you know what, I've struggled long enough. I need to reach out to Karen and ask her, how do we get over this? How do we do this? I want to work with you. And you'll be able to do that too. So create fans, not followers, passionate advocates that recommend you and will share you. Even you don't even have to ask. It's when you share content, even across different platforms, because there's this expectation that you're sharing value, people will go out and seek that, and especially your podcast episode. Often what I hear from previous, communities and that on various podcasts that I have, is that they say, I'm binge listening. I'm going to binge listen to your podcast. And so if you've got multiple episodes, that's a long time that people are going to hang out with you. So by the time they finish all of the however many episodes that you've published, that is a deeper relationship and a level of engagement that you've been able to build. All right, let's have a look at number 3. Focus on building reputation equity and not vanity-based metrics. And again, it speaks into monetizing your own message and not someone else's, for instance, sponsorships and affiliates. I do want to say, before we just dive in a little bit more to this reputation equity, there is nothing wrong with sponsorships. And in fact, sponsorships are an incredible way to build alliances with businesses who have core values as you and your business and ultimately your podcast, but also who can add incredible value to the community of raving fans that you are building. So you see a message that have come up in a couple of my posts saying, don't start your podcast on the back of just sponsorships or advertising. Definitely not advertising, because podcasting space is different. Sponsors can come on, but it's a different way of building the relationship. It is the storytelling, and there's probably going to be a whole new component that I'll be teaching my clients once they launch their podcasts on how to approach sponsorships the right way, how to look for sponsorships, building long-term value with these companies so it's a win-win-win. But ultimately, going from the mindset of you both want to bring incredible value to your community. And I think when both the sponsor and the podcast come together with that in mind, then it's a match made in heaven and everyone wins, especially your community, and they don't feel sold to. Let's talk about reputation equity versus vanity-based metrics. You would have seen me share, for those of you who are also following on Facebook recently, that I'm often connected or asked to be connected with people who have now set up businesses and services that I will hire them to go and to share, to comment, to boost my ranking for my podcast over on Apple and probably other players as well. That is fake. And one of my core values is integrity, and that is not integral. And so, if you want to become known as a top-rated podcast, create top-rated content that's valuable for your audience, and they will share it for you. And so many people start a podcast, and the first question they ask me, the first is, where do I start? What technology? And then I tell them, you don't have to worry about technology. We'll talk about that in a moment. Then how do I get into the new and noteworthy? And, they focus on vanity-based metrics. And you can build your reach, your reputation, and your revenue with a smaller audience of people. And that's what I would focus on first, is looking at what is the reputation that I want to build, and how do I want to build that? I mean, 2 of my core values is excellence and integrity. Fun is in there as well. There's a number of others as well, but that is how I want to build my reputation. And so I know that there's some core themes that I want to share about. One of them obviously is podcasting. My background is in brand and communications. And so now helping people understand what their, unique message is and putting together their story and storytelling that in a way that is going to be compelling and intriguing and engaging and educating and challenging the status quo. And then let's start a podcast and bring that message out and really make an impact in the world. And so there's some core components that I know or topics that I know that I really want to share my message around, because I know that there's a need for my ideal clients in the way that I share it. And I'm sharing that from my perspective because from that you can then identify, well, what's that for me? What is that for me? Where do I want to really share? And I can see you in there, Pix. She's doing I'm just going to put her comment here, Pix. She is the next podcast superstar because she picks, sorry, I don't mean to call you she really is going to be speaking into the area of, and her podcast is going to be called, Couragepreneur. And she is all about helping people overcome adversity, building resilience. And when you have a look at who she is and how Pix brings her message across, it's just Pix. I mean, you've got, if you're still here, I mean, she's got a hashtag, Pix. It's really, she's brilliant the way that she's doing that. But she really is building and will continue to build reputation equity around courage, around building resilience, overcoming adversity, and really getting into that particular area. And so her ideal clients will be people who have a dream, who have a goal, who have been saying for years and years, I really want to X, Y, and Z. They fill in the gap, but they know that they've been stuck because circumstances and situations that have happened in their past have kept them stuck. And so what Pix is going to be able to do is to be able to help them strip back those labels that people have put on them, strip back those labels that they've put on themselves, and help them realize that your past does not determine your future. It's how you look at it, and helping build resilience. And that is what Pix is going to continue to share. And it already is sharing, in her community. But she knows exactly where she wants to build her reputation and how she's going to do that. And which is exciting, because often if you're stuck and you don't know, then what you need to do is go back and have an investigation, do some more research into looking at what I shared with Karen. What are the markers? What are the milestones? What have people said to you just in passing? Oh, you're so this, and the other. What do people often come to you for? Your friends, your colleagues, your community. That can often be evidence of what you naturally do. And what we naturally do is often something that we take for granted because we don't see it as being valuable. But it is valuable because we've walked that journey, we've lived it, we've overcome it. And the overcoming, if you take a step back, in that overcoming are steps that you took, mindset shifts, principles that you've adopted, habits that you've created that you can now systematize and teach others who are struggling to achieve what you've achieved. Guess what? You have just built your reputation equity in that particular field. So if you're stuck and you can't yet define that, it's there. You just need to dig a little bit deeper and find out what that is for you. By the way, that's something that I can help you with. So if you're stuck, let me know, and we can speak about what we might be able to work together. Okay, that's number 3, reputation equity. Don't worry about vanity-based metrics. Share your message with an audience of one. And if you really nail that and you start speaking absolute, which I know you will, value, and with integrity and excellence, your audience will grow. 1 will become 2, will become 4, will become 8, will become, and on and on it goes. But just get clear on that first. Principle number 4 is investing in refining your message before you invest in a microphone. Yeah, microphone and technology is important because you don't want to sound crap. You don't want to have a brilliant message sounding crap. But on the same token, you can have a most expensive microphone, and if you have got fluff and banter and it's not really making an impact, your message, then you can have recorded that on the most expensive microphone. You're still not going to build the reach or the reputation as that trusted authority if you haven't really refined your message. And as the example that I just gave with Pix, I mean, there was a couple of different areas. I hope you don't mind me sharing and raving on about you, Pix. I love to talk more about my clients and myself. So since you're here, I'm going to use you as an example. She had a couple of different areas where she could put her expertise, but we decided through a bit of, questioning, and she knew she just needed to give herself permission to let go of something that had once been recommended that she follow. And as soon as she gave herself permission to do that, everything just clicked. She goes, yep, that's it. And she is on fire. So for you, it may be because you're trying to be too many things across too many areas. You know in your gut what that is. And if not, then seek support, the right support to help you get to that stage where no, this is exactly what it is. And you want to continue to refine that. Something else that you may want to do is start to share some of your message. In the refining, the refining process can often come from the reviewing process of the content that you have shared. And so before you even launch your podcast, you want to do some refining of that message and reviewing of that message by posting some things out and seeing what sticks. Your community will often give you the results and the response that you need to determine the way that you move forward. And one of the things, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this pic. Actually, I don't think you will, because it just validates what you're doing is just so important. And you are actually living and breathing what I'm sharing. Once she identified the key area that she knew that she wanted to really build her reputation equity, she changed some of her Facebook group, or one in particular, the focus. And Pix was saying that audience grew and the engagement grew. And it was because she shaped that message in the area that only she can bring to the airways. And so your community will often give you the feedback that you need. So post a couple of things and see what sticks. Ask questions. Often I will ask, I will share something and then someone will comment, and then I'll go back and I might ask them another question where they provide even more information, and I'll use that response to continue to help me craft my message, because you're using the language of your audience and the experience of your audience and where they're at to inform how you structure your content and what you say. And so a lot of what I write and what I share is coming from the feedback that I'm getting from community and from my community, and also keeping my finger on the pulse. One of the things that I do in my community of change makers, and if you're one of those, you would know that there's a couple of questions that I ask before you join the group. Now, I have documented every single one of those responses. I used to write it by hand. By the way, if there's an easier way of doing that, let me know. But what I do now is I use my screen capture software. And every person that responds and gives me, in their words, what they're struggling with, and 2 questions that I ask, I record that. I've got it all on video in a folder. And so when I'm writing or going to create some content, I'll go back and I'll watch through those videos and kind of see what's the language that these people are using, my community, my change makers, what's the language that they're using? What are they struggling with? What is a common theme that is being and this is all to go with the message, refine your message. What's the common theme coming through? And from doing that has really helped inform me as to how I'm going to continue to refine that message. So I encourage you to do that as well. Become, an investigator and continue just to keep your finger on the pulse in your community. So that is point number 4. Number 5 is learn compelling communication techniques. Now, one of the things I call myself a multi-passionate entrepreneur, learner, always will. I love learning new things. In fact, for me, and this is both I think a blessing, but it's also not a curse, but can be my undoing, because I learn something and then I go, yep, know that, what's the next thing? You know, what we do. And so now, thank goodness, I'm able to focus. All of the new things that I learn helps add value and adds even a deeper level of understanding and insight that I can share with my community in a specific area. However, one of the tools that I learned years ago when I studied NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, was around different communication techniques. And this is brilliant when you're sharing content and metaphors. I used to do that with my children when I was learning very young. You know, we might say something like, okay, because they were young, and I said, well, you get to choose the time that you want to go to bed. Yay! Okay, you got two choices, kids. You can either go to bed in 15 minutes or you can go to bed in a quarter of an hour. Your choice. And, you know, that's kind of a bit of a, you know, wacky example, but how you communicate, and it has to be done with integrity. But why you're doing this is because you want to speak into someone's beliefs or unhelpful beliefs that you know is going to keep them stuck. What are those concerns? What are concerns that you've overcome, you know, through that? And so you want to challenge that in a very compelling way. And, you know, the way that you speak about something, you know, when you think about, and we talked about this with the recent alumni members who are in the process of launching their podcast. And one of the comments from one of them was, well, I've got my podcast now, but what I hate is the selling. And I said, well, guess what? I hate selling too. But if you get your core message, you share it in a way that engages and that really taps into the challenges of your ideal customer, and you share insights and you share, you know, you speak into some of the concerns and some of the obstacles, you know, the objections that they may not even realize that they have. When you invite someone to step forward, they're more likely to say yes, because they don't feel that they've been sold to. I mean, you know, that's a whole other topic. But when you learn these compelling techniques, you can engage where people are at, because you're building rapport with them. So you can either, and one of the ways that I often see, you know, highly skilled business owners and people who are really skilled in different modalities, they're excited about the tools that they're able to support clients with. So they talk about these tools. Like if I was to say to you that in my training of you know, my interviewing with purpose training, I spend time teaching people some NLP techniques as it comes to conversations and structuring their podcast and the different things that you want to say and how you can lead guests into creating, you know, incredible responses to your podcast. Now, if I put the terms and the way that we talked about what are some, you know, like metaphors and nested and looped metaphors and all of these different things, people would go, what? So you don't talk about the jargon or the, you know, the finer ins and outs. You talk about the experience, you talk about the outcome, because otherwise you're going to lose, you know, your audience. So just be mindful that you're able to engage, that you're able to educate, considering your ideal customers, the buyer's journey, and where this piece of content is being shared. You're then able to move to nurture that person from, you know, like, and trust to, yeah, find out more. I want to work with you. How do I do that? And that's where you can create this highly engaged audience of fans and compel them. Not in a, you know, shonky way, but in a real integral way, because you're continuing to bring excellence into your area of expertise. Okay. Point number 6 is create that distinguishable experience and expectation. It's something that I shared earlier with Karen, when she said, you know, how do I stand out from an audience of many other people who are speaking into that? Well, that is where you've really got to identify what's unique about you. What are the nuances? What are the quirkiness? What is the story, the journey, the challenges that you've overcome, the steps, the habits you've created, the principles that you now run your life by, that you can now teach and bring forward to your audience? And once you're able to capture that, and define what that experience is, you're then able to bring that to life. You've got to define it first before you even bring that to life. What do I mean by that? Well, it can come across in the title, the words, the description that you use. I use a system called the Branding with Archetype System, and it's exciting because Pix has just identified that she is a humanitarian first and foremost. That's her primary archetype, her artist. And then, so now she's going to bring her content across very much in the experience of an artist or humanitarian and artist. So, you need to be mindful of what experience you want to create, because it's going to show up in every expression, from the music to the sound effects to the voiceover professional to how you show up on your podcast. You cannot create a distinguishable experience, and you cannot create and set up an expectation of value, of excellence, of integrity, or whatever it is that you want to set up that expectation around your core values if you don't even know what they are. So get clear on them first, and then you're able to create that unique experience that only you can bring to the table. And last but not least, number 7. And this is something that many podcast hosts, business owners who are leveraging a podcast to build their reach, their reputation as a trusted authority, and ultimately their revenue, don't do. Now, we hear the common, which are not bad, the common calls to action would be, if you liked this particular podcast episode, please like it, please go and comment, please give us a rating, share it with your community. They're great, but what your ultimate goal is to do is to get people off your podcast and onto your nurturing sequence, into your community, building that community. So one of the things you want to consider is to establish a robust list building and compelling seed and lead initiatives. And that's that seeding and leading, which ties into number 5, those compelling communication techniques. And so, what is going to be that compelling call to action for you? One of the things that I teach and we implement with clients is to create a 3-part Thought Leader podcast series, which actually nurtures people, your ideal client, who have said yes, who have actually said, yep, I've got an issue, I've got a challenge, and I want to learn, and identify what are some of the things that I need to be doing to be able to get out of that challenge and start to work towards my goals. And so that opt-in would then be that 3-part series, and other aspects included, of course, in that. But the reason we do that is because people who listen to podcasts like audio. They like to consume content in audio format. So don't let your call to action be a long video series or, read a book. I've got colleagues who listen to audio because they hate reading. And it's like, I will never read a book unless I'm actually forced to. And so give your community content in the way they consume it and in the way they consume the original content. So if you've got podcast listeners, give them more content consumed in a podcast audio form. Yes, you can include other things as well to help, consume that content, like transcripts, graphics, worksheets, that kinesthetic where you want to get them writing, you want to get pen out or typing. That's all very important. But a podcast series is really great. And so what you might say, and you can use this across any platform that you are sharing your information to build your list. Say you're on the media, you've gone on other podcasts. I know many of you are going on other podcasts, which is fabulous, but have you already created your opt-in system? Have you already created an opt-in of maybe some other podcast episodes that you have done that you can then seed and lead people into, so that you're building your list of raving fans? Many people don't, so it's a missed opportunity. But say you have gone on, or even mainstream media. I only scratched the surface today on how to go from invisible to influential and profitable with a podcast. I've dived deeper into this particular topic, laid out some principles, given you some checklists on what you need to do and the common mistakes which 99.99999% of business owners make when it comes to launching their podcast. You can get access. It's free. Go to my podcast series, www.annemariecross.com/podcast series. Done. That's it. And then people who are interested will go, you know what? I'm actually interested. Am I making those mistakes? I don't know. I need to find out. And then off they go and register. And then you've just invited someone who you can now spend time with to support on their journey in your area of expertise through that call to action. So that is podcasting with purpose. Those are the 7 principles. The right podcast strategy begins with the end in mind. Create fans, not followers. Focus on building reputation equity, not vanity-based metrics. Invest in refining your message before you invest in a microphone. Learn compelling communication techniques, create that distinguishable experience and expectation. And lastly, establish a robust list building and compelling seed and lead initiative. Done and dusted. Fantastic. So I don't know whether you've got any other questions. Write them in the comment section and I will make sure to answer them before I go. While I'm doing that, my team and I have recently just opened up, and I'm going to share it with you because I know a number of you who are part of the community were on the fence with the 90-day idea to launch your Thought Leader podcast. We have gone through, we're up at the stage. Pix is part of that, and she's at the stage where she's doing her branding, recognizing who she is and the experience she's going to create. We have opened the doors for the next 48 hours. So if you want to be launching your Thought Leader podcast, or maybe you've already got a podcast and it's just not generating the results, maybe you're up to episode 10 or up to episode 20 or 40 or whatever, and if you're honest with yourself, you really don't have a robust, what I call a podcast profit pipeline, where you're nurturing these leads, listeners into leads, and ultimately, through that pipeline of business opportunities, then you need to get into this. We'll help you get that podcast series into place and all of the things that I mentioned. podcastingwithpurpose.com/immersive. It's open for the next 48 hours. What's included in that program is also there. So please go and have a look if that's of interest to you. So we will be launching your podcast and celebrating that with an incredible live launch with everyone who is launching. What are we now? June, July, August. So about end of August. We'll be doing that. Now, for those of you who are really not sure, opened up my calendar. Let's have a chat. And we'll see where you're at, see whether this is something that you're ready for. If you're not yet ready for it, I will let you know. There's a number of people who are going through my the Influence Alliance Tier 1, where we're looking at your core business foundations, people who are not really yet clear on their niche and their message. So we'll help you build that out first, so that when you launch your podcast, you've already got this robust foundation, those core business foundations. But let's have a chat. Let's see where you're at. AnnmarieCross.com/let's chat. And then we'll see what the best option is for you. And maybe it's not till the next round, but we can get you into the core business foundation so that you will be ready the next time that we launched. Doug says, amazing. Thank you, Anne-Marie. You are welcome. You are amazing too. Doug is a man to follow, because I love the way, Doug, that you structure just what you do as well. And you're all about metrics and measuring and monitoring, which is so important as well. So I love the work that you're doing as well. Karen says, 7 principles, amazing. Thank you so much, to think about and work on. Yes, absolutely. Fantastic. Good, good, good. All right. Well, I am going to stop. That is something that I want to share. I'm glad that it's got written value. If you're not yet part of the community of change makers, get on there, because there's some great people across there that are already doing some collaborations. Podcastingwithpurpose.com/change makers. If you haven't already subscribed to my podcast, go ahead and do that. Industrythoughtleaderpodcast.com. We've got who we featured last week was Chantel Girardi, and just amazing about all things Facebook and things that you need to be doing. A lot of the principles she shared actually were fantastic around any business platform, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you're on Twitter, whether you are, on Facebook. A lot of those principles. So that's the most recent show. Elise, going to share your comment there. Great content delivered with authenticity. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you, Elise. Thank you for being here. So I will be back here again next week. Not sure if I'm going to share it across all platforms, maybe just in the Changemaker community, but I thought I might do some teaching around interviewing with purpose. I've recently created, I'll share with you, just for those of you who may be interested to come across. I just recently created this, Are You an Engaging Podcast Host and Interviewer? Take the quiz. So there's 5 different pillars that I'm thinking of diving a little bit deeper into, because interviewing is a whole different skill set, isn't it? So I'll be talking a little bit more about that in next week's influential training. So I can't wait to connect with you again. Thank you very much, and bye for now.